I guess you could equate him to the old outlaws of the 1800s in the Old West.
These so-called outlaws are road warriors. With a powerful engine beneath them and often with a gun at their side, these motorcyclists often travel in packs that resemble families.
There's no doubt about the fact that the larger types of motorcycle gangs have tended to some extent to try to pattern themselves after the so-called La Cosa Nostra mafia. Some are able perhaps to do that successfully at a little bit greater extent than others are.
Bill Wood, the Cleveland area agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, who keeps track of motorcycle gangs in Ohio.
The major focus of their criminal activity today tends to be in the area of narcotics trafficking of some sort or the other. They are also known to be heavily involved in elements of prostitution, as well as various types of money laundering activities, and certainly, as far as ATF's interest is concerned, the illegal possession and use of firearms and or explosives.
Wood says often the violent gangs are heavily armed.
We have found both automatic weapons as well as semi-automatic weapons, sawed-off shotguns, as well as conventional types of handguns. So their armament runs the full gamut as it relates to the availability of both legal and illegal firearms.
Wood says he's not surprised by the weapons discovered among gangs. He says about 5 years ago, a Laws rocket, an anti-tank weapon, was fired into an outlaw clubhouse by a rival gang in the Toledo area. I'm Jeff Henderson, News Radio 700 WLW.
Motorcycle gangs most often war among themselves, and that war erupted in a hail of gunfire recently in Mount Carmel.
This is Michael Leland in Union Township. Vic's Brew & Q sits alongside Old State Route 74 here. It's a yellow building where on Saturday, January 21st at 12:30, a meeting among several biker groups ended with shots ringing out from the bar doors without warning. When it was over, 2 men were dead.
I'm amazed that someone wasn't killed out on the streets because the traffic was stopped for traffic lights in both directions.
Police Chief Russell Willis, who's not the only one worried about the gunfight.
I have children that have that currently go to the school approximately a half a block away from Vic's Brew & Crew.
This man asked us not to use his name, but he says with all the talk of retaliation in the shooting, he's concerned about what might happen at the school.
It's 5 seconds from the bar. And if you get a gunfight going on at the bar or something like that, and it breaks out and people are taking off, there's no telling what kind of incident could happen.
This woman, who also asked not to be named, has a daughter at that same school.
I mean, I can't even get near that intersection, and she'll say, "Mommy, we're not going to go past that place, are we?" And I don't go past that place anymore.
Both these people want Vic's closed permanently, and so does the chief. He's looking into it. Rodney Sellers' family owns the property at Vic's, and he says closing the bar won't solve the biker problem.
This could have happened anywhere. I mean, they got together and they did it there. They could have got together at your house and did it.
Michael Leland, News Radio 700 WLW.
It's not the first time the one percenters, biker talk for violent gangs, have squared off, pitting the band that sports the Skull and Pistons logo against those with a horse of iron on their jackets.
This is Bryant Combs. The history of the trouble between motorcycle gangs in the tri-state date back as far as the history of those gangs themselves. 1969, 3 rival gangs mix it up in Batavia, 1 guy shot. 1972, an outlaw shot in the back riding his Harley down Montgomery Road. He was shot by an iron horseman. And soon after that, a series of bombings as outlaws got even with the horsemen. In the years that followed, isolated incidents until all-out war in 1977. It was at that time that innocent people started getting killed. A man shot riding a motorcycle on I-74, a man who didn't belong to any gang. And another man shot and killed in a case of mistaken identity driving down Victory Parkway. It is that kind of fighting the police and bikers fear is about to start all over again.
I think you'd have to be halfway dumb not to be afraid. I think everybody should be afraid. I think if you go to a bar, you ride a motorcycle, or you wear a leather jacket or a Harley t-shirt, I think you're a goddamn idiot these days.
He knows because he's been there, a retired horseman who doesn't want to be identified and is now acting as a spokesman for the group. The horsemen are talking publicly for the first time in years to let the outlaws know that they're open to peace talks.
We don't need to kill each other. And if you think I'm weak for crying, I've done my share of kicking ass, and it was outlaws too. So, I ain't no slouch. It's just that it's getting to the point where somebody's got to put a halt to it. And whatever they can do to stop it, I think should be done.
The Outlaws, though, aren't talking. They're refusing comment. And the Horsemen, who say they'd consider peace talks, say they also are ready for war. Understanding that joining one of these clubs could cost you your life, you have to wonder then why anyone would want to do it. What do members get out of being an Iron Horseman?
It means a livelihood. A whole thing living for the club, for your bike, for everything that the club stands for, regardless if it's wrong or right.
They say it's like a fraternity where potential members are put through a series of tests to see if they're tough enough. Once they get in, then comes the leather jacket and the Horseman emblem, also a newfound respect. There's strength in numbers, and when these people ride down the road on their Harleys, they command attention.
I got into the motorcycle club because when you were riding down the road, the little old ladies and everybody used to run you off the road, sort of like the Easy Rider movie where the poor bastard got blown off his bike with an American flag on his back. But you get dirty, leathered, gray, nasty, and a large cloud of smoke follows you around when you ride. They veer wide away from you. There's a safety in that sort of sense. You're not hassled as much.
There is power in numbers, power in their machines, and power in the pistols that they pack. They know it, and they're not afraid to show it.
You get a little meek, mild-mannered guy who walks in the club and says he wants to join. By the time he gets his jacket on his back, he's turned into I hate to say this, a Marine or a jarhead or a monster, a gorilla, knuckle-dragging, King Kong.
Even the police seem afraid of these motorcycle gang members. I watched as the Outlaws buried a club member in Dayton, and in a final tribute, they pulled guns from under their coats, defiantly shooting those guns in the air. I wasn't the only one watching. So were about 15 police officers who showed no signs of doing anything to stop them.
So who are these men of the road?
This is Matt Reese, the biker. Generally, he's got long hair. He's a social misfit, and he's considered an outcast.
I think most bikers that are one-percenters almost have to all agree that we're probably on the status of racist or anything. We're probably even lower than what most people look at blacks as.
This is a scene from the movie Easy Rider, a picture whose message is one the bikers understand.
Looked like a bunch of refugees from a guerrilla levy, and a gorilla couldn't love that, nor could a mother.
Because bikers consider themselves different from everyday people, they want to be left alone.
I'd be real happy if they just put reservations out there for bikers like they used to do for Indians and stuff. It'd be great, and leave us alone.
But as much as bikers crave their own space, the rough lifestyle has made life difficult for others, or at least put the fear of God in them, like the elderly man who approached me near the old Horseman hangout in the East End. Couldn't speak, but was waving his arms that I should stay away, and wrote the word kill on a piece of paper. And the owner of a bar in Camp Washington where the latest feud began. Meredith Childers is caught in the middle. He lets bikers come into his bar like anyone else, but now because of the violence, almost no one comes in for a drink. He is in danger of losing his business, and because of bomb threats and talk of a bounty on him, fearful of losing his life.
Just can't drive down the street without watching your back. Can't go home without going around the block 5 or 6 times, make sure nobody's following you. You sleep on the couch, still sleeping in the bed, watch the front door.
He wants people to know he is not hooked up with the Outlaws or the Iron Horsemen.
Our sources tell us an army of ex-Marines make up the ranks. Again, at the heart of the dispute is an issue of territorial rights. What area of recruiting belongs to the Outlaws and what area belongs to the Iron Horsemen?
The Outlaws and the Horsemen have been at this for years. This isn't new to them at all.
Steve Beck, a criminal justice professor at the University of Cincinnati, who says the name of the game is territory.
It's just a matter of improving or building a presence in an area.
Beck spent 13 years as a police officer in Springfield Township, where he says he had dealings with both the Horsemen and Outlaws before the Outlaws moved out.
They left just because they were allowed to pretty much die on the vine by virtue within the total outlaw organization.
But Beck says now they're trying to regain influence here by making a little business deal with a smaller local bike group, the Freeboarders.
It's just a matter of trying to build influence, and if you've got a ready base of influence, in other words, there's already members, a group here, it would be something perhaps like a takeover in business terms.
Whatever the outlaws' reasons are for moving back here, one thing is clear. The Iron Horsemen consider the tri-state their turf.
This has been a kind of compact organization. They have never been or expanded as big as, say, the Outlaws or some of the other large motorcycle gangs.
Beck says the recent shootout in Claremont County will very likely mean retribution. He says it's not clear if the retribution would be carried out here in the tri-state or elsewhere, but if one side feels paybacks are in order...
Retribution is going to be violent. If it, at some point in time, it would not be surprising to see.
Bill Tonis, News Radio 700 WLW.
Now, we've heard the reports the shootout in Mount Carmel had something to do with territorial overstepping and with recruitment efforts between the rival motorcycle clubs. It seems the dispute had been boiling for some time.
This most recent feud began about a month ago. Members of the Outlaws from Dayton went to a bar in Camp Washington for a birthday party for a member of a local biker gang called the Freeboarders, supposedly a legitimate biker club. As that party was breaking up, once the Outlaws left, the Iron Horsemen, who found out about it, jumped the Freeboarders.
An altercation came about. Some Freeboarders were jarred into reality by baseball bats at a bar. After the Enlightenment, they were told that there was no intent to hit Outlaws at that night. There was the entire attack, or whatever you want to call it, was directed at them, and it was directed at them for the sheer fact that they were partying with Outlaws.
The Horsemen say the Freeboarders asked for the trouble by associating with the gang from Dayton. The Horsemen spokesman tells us that they believe the Freeboarders plotted to try and get even, and they did that by setting a trap for the Horsemen a week later. Our Matt Reese picks up the story.
The Saturday of the shootout, biker clubs from across the tri-state were meeting at Vic's Brew & Q to plan their summer road rallies and parties. The Horsemen were planning to attend, but didn't know the Outlaws would be there too. The Horsemen think the Freeboarders set it up, knowing there would be trouble. And there was.
Horsemen were there, Outlaws showed up, words were exchanged, gunshots were fired.
The ironic part is the Outlaws are now feuding again with the Iron Horsemen when it's possible their quarrel may be with the Freeboarders, who never even showed up for the meeting.
You can't even call it a gang war incident, can you? Because neither one of the groups knew the other one was going to be there, did they?
No, nobody really knew the other one was going to be there. As far as who fired the first shot, I don't know.
Now it doesn't really seem to matter, but this spokesman for the Horsemen says there is part of the story of the shootout that has never come out.
There was a 7-year-old kid inside that bar, and a horseman jumped on top of him and laid on top of him so the kid wouldn't be shot during this thing. There ain't nobody trying to be a hero over this, but I think it ought to be noted that we're not animals to the point we're not respectful of other people and try to do what we can to say what we can.
With all the motorcycle gang violence erupting, many motorcycle groups in this area are concerned about being confused with the warring Iron Horsemen or Outlaws.
I don't want to die, just want to ride on my motorcycle.
This is Ann Alexander. The recent violence is a blow to the image of most of the 99% of bikers who are peaceful. Rich Anderson is a member of the Gold Wings Motorcycle Association and is president of the Tri-States River City Motorcycle Club. Both are nonviolent groups.
Our big thing is we're trying to improve the image of motorcyclists because we're just everyday people doing our thing. And we don't want everybody to think that we're a bunch of lowlifes that just crawled out of the woodwork.
Anderson is concerned people stereotyping all bikers as violent tough guys will hand out their own form of justice.
It's happened before, and it'll probably happen again. People get scared, they see a motorcycle, they run over them with cars and knock them off their motorcycle. We've been shot at different times by different groups, not myself, but it happens.
The image of chopper-riding, gun-toting roughnecks isn't what Anderson's groups are all about.
The groups I ride with, the only thing they can seem to get into is a McDonald's or an ice cream store.
Anderson's groups and many others like his take part in charity rides and other public service activities. It's a way to help others and to promote a positive image. Anderson feels it'll take work to regain lost ground.
We're just going to have to keep on going out there and busting our chops, trying to get it built back up. Do some more public spirited things.
He wants us to remember,
it's not the motorcycle, it's the person on the motorcycle that makes the difference.
So why don't police just knuckle down and force gang members into peace?
I'm Jeff Henderson.
I wouldn't say they intimidate the police, but a policeman would be a fool if any time he stopped a biker, got involved with him, that he wasn't somewhat apprehensive or a little nervous of what he was doing. Because I was a policeman that had dealt with him, and as a federal agent, usually when you arrest or serve warrants, you're very apprehensive because they're a different breed of people, and you really sometimes do not know how they're going to react.
Bill Curley with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. When it comes to the hardcore motorcycle gangs that operate in Ohio, the most violent is considered to be the Hells Angels in the Cleveland area.
Of course, the Outlaws, the Banditos, and the Pagans, those constitute what we refer to in the law enforcement community as the Big Four. And certainly among those four, they have been responsible for some significant types of criminal activity over the years and continue to pursue those activities.
Bill Wood with the ATF in Ohio. In Louisville, there was recently a trial involving the Hells Angels, but for the most part, Wood says it has been pretty quiet in Ohio for the past several years until the shooting in Mount Carmel a few weeks ago. As for membership,
I would not say, as it relates to Ohio, that we see it, increasing as far as club memberships are concerned. It's been relatively constant with us.
The ATF says task force using local, state, and federal agencies have been successful breaking up some gangs, but it usually takes years of investigation.
One source inside the gangs tells me he likes the so-called badass image they have. He says it staves off other problems. He adds they just want people to let them be. As for the future, well, there are fears that something else could happen in the area, and Claremont County Police aren't taking any chances.
Union Township Police Chief Russell Willis says he never expected the shootout at Vic's, and despite talk of more trouble, isn't expecting a recurrence. But he says the incident has changed how his department looks at some biker groups.
We're doing more frequent patrol. We're doing more bar checks of all of our bars at this point to determine whether there is a gathering of that type of people coming into our location.
Willis says he's not only concerned about people's safety, but also about Union Township's image.
We're trying to build a community that is rapidly growing here, and we don't like this type of activity occurring. It might damage that reputation that we presently have.
Michael Leland, News Radio 700 WLW.
There are 50 states in this country of ours, and for many of us, it's hard to imagine why the outlaws and horsemen can't each stake out some portion of this land and stay to themselves without any more bloodshed.
There's an agreement between the Iron Horsemen and the Outlaws dating back nearly 20 years. It's supposed to keep the Outlaws out of Cincinnati.
You set up a chapter in the Cincinnati area, and that's a war.
It's not clear yet to the voice of the Horsemen whether the Outlaws are making such a move. But what is so important about Cincinnati anyway? There is a theory.
Both sides are vying for the idea that if gambling becomes legal in this area, it'll open up all the little bars and everything else, and everybody will be making money again.
Because the Outlaws have refused us an interview, we can't ask them whether they are planning a move into Cincinnati. But if they are, it probably means more bloodshed.
If they aren't, then this current battle might be a big mistake. An irony magnified by the fact that a number of bikers might not understand what they're actually fighting for. Sounds like the Hatfields and McCoys.
It's an inherited war. Nobody knows what it's about anymore. Jesus Christ, they're going out and trying to kill people, and they don't even know the reason that they're wanting to kill these people.
To protect our source, we don't want to be very specific about why he retired from the Horsemen, except to say that his killer instinct apparently became something he couldn't control.
Just got to be old. My cat knocked over a vase on a nightstand one night, and I blew the cat out the side window with a shotgun. I didn't mean to shoot the cat. It's just I thought somebody got in the bedroom.
Since his retirement, our link to the Iron Horsemen has continued friendships, not only with them, but with members of rival gangs like Kenneth Hambold Hammonds. He was the outlaw killed in the Claremont County shootout.
I got cheated out going to Hambold's funeral. As far as I've always been concerned, regardless of who you were, that a funeral was neutral. And if you came to pay your respects, why not go? And I was told by a lot of people, do not go to this one in Dayton. And Jesus Christ, I go back with this guy a long time. And I liked him as a friend. And there's a lot of other people that I like as friends. Maybe not so much in Dayton, but in other chapters. And I don't want to see him hurt. And maybe they sit there and scoff and say, well, he's copping deuces, or he's just trying to... No. If if you know me, then you know that it ain't true.
No peace talks are set between the Iron Horsemen and the Outlaws, though the Horsemen are willing to talk or fight, depending on what their rivals want. And if they do fight, the question is, where will it happen? While he doesn't look for a shootout in Cincinnati, our source won't speculate where the showdown will take place, only that it will happen, and that the feud won't be over until one side is dead.
So far, nothing's happened, thank God. Maybe nothing will happen for a while.
But it will happen.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen. It's unfortunate, but I think it will.
For the entire news team, I'm Kathy Lair, News Radio 700 WLW.